Before I met Angel, I was not much of a relationship person. I just loved to have fun and satisfy my needs, and that was it. I was terrified of being in a relationship with the wrong woman, especially after everything that happened between my parents and what my father had told me about women. But when Angel came into my life, she ticked all the boxes and everything seemed right with her. While we were friends, I didn't see one flaw with Angel. I guess it was because I fell in love with her sooner than I imagined, or I was blinded in love. After a few months of being friends, I asked Angel out and she said yes. We were already so close at this point and we were inseparable. Her parents knew we were a thing, even when we were not officially dating, and they were only waiting for Angel to break the news to them. When she finally did, they were so happy, and I was even invited for dinner to celebrate our relationship. A year and 6 months after Angel and I dated, I popped the question and she said yes. I was confident she was the one for me, and I didn't think of spending my life with anyone else. After we married, I rented a bigger apartment and we moved in together like a couple. I didn't want children because I had seen how so many couples had changed after their first child. Except for being with my father as I grew up, no one else made me as happy as Angel did. We did everything together and we spent a lot of time with each other. The only time we were not alone was when we were having dinner with my dad, her parents, or our best friends. Meanwhile, my dad gradually accepted Angel after I persuaded him to at least give her a chance, and it worked. On the other hand, our friendship bonds grew stronger. My best friend and I still hung out regularly. I didn't want to be the kind of friend who would abandon his best friend just because I was married, and I tried as much as possible to make time for him. I believed it was good since he and Angel got along well, and I didn't think it would be a problem one day. Throughout the 4 years of our marriage, it was bliss, love, respect, and intimacy. We didn't lack anything, were always happy, and both played roles in our marriage. I would not have believed it if anyone had told me that my Angel was having an affair behind me. Well, I saw things for myself, and that's when I realized that she had been playing me all along. One evening after Angel and I had dinner and we got intimate, she went to bed early because she had been complaining of tiredness the whole evening. I didn't join her in bed because I wanted to watch a murder mystery program I always watched every night. Later that night I went to bed, but I was struggling with sleep and didn't want to go to the living room to get my phone. If not, I would surf the internet till 3 or 4 in the morning. I left my phone in the living room every night to discipline myself. After I struggled for minutes, I decided to watch a couple of YouTube videos on Angel's phone, and in the middle of the second video I watched, a WhatsApp message popped on her screen from Rick, my best friend. I didn't know it was Rick initially because she saved his number as R and a love emoji. He must have seen her online and thought she was the one. Out of curiosity, I opened the message and it appeared like they were only chatting for the first time that day. Their previous messages were cleared, and I felt that was odd. Just as I was trying to wrap my head around what was happening, Rick sent her a photo, the kind of photo you could only view once. When I opened it, it was a picture of his private part. The picture also said, "Think about this until we meet again." I knew what was happening at that point, but I believed I was either dreaming or having a nightmare. It turned out that Angel and Rick were having an affair this whole time, and I didn't have the slightest idea. We always hung out as a group, and I thought their kindness to each other was because we were all like family. To show my shock, I went to the bathroom and washed my face to be sure of what I had seen. But everything was 100% real. That night, I had several ideas running through my head. I wanted to silently hurt my wife for what she had done, but I didn't plan on spending the rest of my life in prison because of a cheating woman. So I thought of something and an idea popped. I continued to chat with Rick like I was my wife, and I asked if he would love us to hang out and eat at a particular restaurant the next day at a particular time, and he agreed. I even asked him to wear something provocative for me, and he assured me that he would wear something that would set Angel's body on fire. He thought he was chatting with Angel and didn't know it was me. As usual, at the end of the conversation, he reminded Angel to clear the chat so I would not see it, and I did. The following day when I woke up, I acted like everything was fine, and I told Angel I wanted to have dinner with her family later that evening. So she phoned her parents and notified them about the dinner. Later that evening, me, Angel, and her parents were there 10 minutes earlier than the time I told Rick, and our foods were not even served when Rick came. Well, let's say he was shocked to see me and Angel's family, and Angel was surprised to see him there. I still pretended everything was good and asked him to join us. I waited for the food to be served, and just as we started eating, I asked questions that made Rick and Angel uncomfortable. I knew they would play innocent, so I stopped beating around the bush and exposed everything they had been doing to Angel's parents. Rick couldn't say a word and couldn't even look me in the eye. He just left. As for Angel, she looked like a panda because her mascara melted due to her tears and gave her a hideous look. She cried and begged and even blamed Rick for manipulating her. There and then, I told her it was over between us, and she could only come to take her stuff from my house. Then I left. She made a scene by crying and running after me at the restaurant, but I was not falling for any of that. I knew her parents would try to come and beg me, and when they did, I respectfully asked them to leave my house. When they refused, I kicked them out. Angel refused to come and take her stuff because she believed her parents could beg me to forgive her, so they ended up going with her stuff that day. We eventually divorced and I cut ties with her and my best friend, including her family. I heard that her father stopped speaking to her and refused for her to move into their house while we were going through our divorce. I also blocked their lines from calling me, and I blocked Angel and Rick on all our mutual social media platforms. I hate to admit that my dad was right about women, but he felt terrible that I had to hurt that way. We divorced in 2020 and it's been almost 3 years now. I still detest her for wasting 6 years of my life, and I hope she gets dumped by every man she loves in all her life. Right now, I'm focusing more on what makes me happy and spending more time with my dad. I still wish I never met her. OP, your ex-wife and best friends are both terrible people, and it would have been better if you never met them. I'm sorry you had to endure this kind of hurt. No one deserves to be betrayed this way. I'm glad you did the right thing by cutting ties with both of them. I'm glad you're doing what you love and spending time with your father. That's all that matters for now. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Now let's get into our second story for today. My wife and I both met at a bar on a Monday morning. I worked as a bartender, and she came in that morning after she had been fired from a place she worked for a short period. I didn't know that spending the rest of the night with her would lead to something more intense between us. Later that night, we went to a concert, then decided to walk around town because I was interested in her. She was in excellent company, and we discussed the random things adults discussed. After walking for an hour, we went our separate ways, but she was kind enough to give me her contact. We talked the next morning, and a few days later we met at a coffee shop. I had invited her to come to the bar and spend time with me, but she insisted that she wasn't ready to show her face there for the time being, and I respected her decision. We had more dates after our first coffee date, and meeting her frequently created a chemistry between us. I realized I liked her, and I wasn't someone who liked to be around the bush, so I told her I liked her, and she suggested that we take things slow. Weeks after we met, I got a response from one of the dream companies I had applied to and got a job. I was delighted because I had not gotten the job I wanted after being laid off from my former company. The only problem was the job was in a different town, and I would have to travel back to my hometown if I needed to do something important. Eventually, I took the job, and as I traveled, my ex-wife and I were not a thing yet. We were just close friends, and I knew she liked me too. We were taking things slowly, as she suggested, and we spoke to each other every night before bed. I think 2 months after I traveled for work, my ex-wife broke the news that she had gotten a new job, and we were both so happy. Although the pay was not as good as her previous job, it was better than the hourly menial jobs she did, and she believed she could get promoted fast if she did a great job. Sadly, I could not return to celebrate with her that weekend because I was working overtime, but I promised to make it up to her. Not long after that, she started giving me signals that she wanted a stronger relationship between us, and I was forced to ask her out again, and this time she said yes. When she finally said yes, I returned home to celebrate with her, and we made intense love that night. It was our first time bonding with each other, and I still have bits of the memories in my head. Because of our different work locations, our relationship became a long-distance one. We spoke to each other every day and night, sent pictures, and even got intimate on the phone. I also sent flowers and chocolates to her workplace whenever I wanted to surprise her, and most times I would send her money to buy whatever she wanted. Aside from being a beautiful soul, one of the reasons I loved my wife was because she was a giver too. My gifting was not one-sided because she would occasionally send gifts to my house or have something I loved delivered to me at work. While we dated, we didn't have any issues, and I tried as much as possible to travel back to my hometown every weekend or she would come over. We were very happy and we loved each other so much. Both our families knew we were dating and they loved us both. We both got decent pay and we were able to support our families. Even with our long-distance relationship, I didn't really feel her absence because we did video calls all the time. And after 9 months of traveling miles to see each other, I asked her to marry me and she said yes. Eventually we married, but I couldn't return to her hometown, and she couldn't come to me either. I was working on getting a transfer since it wasn't possible on her end, but things did not move as fast as I wanted. Sadly, we spent the first year of our marriage traveling back and forth to be with each other, and we jumped on the slightest holiday to spend time with each other. After the first year of not getting a positive response from the organization I worked for, my ex-wife, and I lost hope of getting the transfer. I even started sending my application to companies that needed my skill in her hometown, and I was hoping something would pop up for me. 2 months later, something popped up, but it wasn't in my hometown. The organization I worked for approved my transfer, and I was getting a raise. When I got the news at first, I was so happy and I wanted to tell my wife about it, but on second thought, I wanted to see how she would react when she saw me, so I kept it to myself. After everything was settled at my organization, I left on a Thursday. My intention was to go to my wife's office and surprise her in person, which I did. On getting to her place of work, I drove to the parking lot, stepped out of my car, and was about to call her when I noticed something. There weren't a lot of cars parked in that area of the parking lot, so it was easy to see my wife's car. As funny as it sounds, I ended up being the surprised one because I saw my wife and her boss in the front seat making out with each other. I knew it was terrible when my legs felt numb and I could no longer move. My heart almost stopped beating and I was devastated. Seeing that destroyed every bit of happiness and excitement in me. And I could not believe she was cheating on me after all the promises we made to each other. For once, I never thought of cheating on my wife or being with another woman. I won't say I was not tempted, I was, but I couldn't give in to the temptation because of how much I loved her. Without overthinking, I made a video, took pictures of my wife and her boss, and drove out of the parking lot. I returned to our house, the one I rented after we got married, and she was so happy when she returned home to see me. She even asked why I didn't tell her I was coming home on a weekday so she could cook me something special. I played along, but deep down I was hurting, and the way I looked at her changed after what I saw. We didn't even get intimate that night because I claimed I was tired and needed to rest. I gave her the same excuse the following day, and immediately she left for work. I sent the pictures and video I had taken the previous day to her HR. Later that day, she called me in a panic, and she said she had been fired and didn't know why she lied. I acted concerned and asked her to come home immediately. When she did, I broke the news and told her someone had informed me that she was cheating and I had proof. Her boss was also fired. But she didn't mention it because she knew it would confirm what I had said. She didn't think I was serious until I told her I was divorcing her. Instead of owning up to her mistake, she started calling me names and saying I believed what others said about her instead of believing her. She even claimed someone who hated her must have framed her, and she could prove that. I told her I was sorry and kicked her out of the house. She made a scene outside but left after standing there for hours. It made me happy to see her in such a miserable state, but I was still hurt to find out she was having an affair with her boss, and only God knew how long that had been going on. We eventually divorced, and I even sent her parents the photos and videos I made that day. Her parents were very religious people, and they could not stand the sight of what they had seen. They disowned her after the photos and videos came from an anonymous account, which was me. Eventually, I divorced my wife, and the rumor of our short-term marriage and her infidelity with her boss spread like wildfire within our town. Even worse, she was blacklisted and could not get a job in any organization within our town. She tried numerous times to get employed but got nothing. Somehow, it dawned on her that she needed to change location to get a job. But because of her financial situation, she could not afford to leave town because everyone shunned her, including some of her friends. The last time someone talked about her, I heard she was planning to go back to college for a change in profession, but I don't know how true it is and I don't care. Because of her, I have found it difficult to fall in love with any woman I meet because I think they will all break my trust and cheat on me like my wife did. It's normal to have your fears after what happened, but you cannot put your life on hold because of what your wife did to you. Sadly, you didn't even get to enjoy your marriage, and just when things fell into place for you, she ruined everything. I wish you all the best and hope you are able to heal from this. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story